Welcome to Buffalo Gameday Recap, our first game day recap of the year. It's a preseason game, but it's still a game, so it's still game day recap. I'm
Was
Thad
it
Brown.
a game, though?
Well, we'll get into that in a minute. Thad Brown along with AJ Feldman here, and yeah, Bills lose 33-6, and the score properly indicated how this game looked. And afterward, Sean McDermott, AJ, pulled no punches, explaining exactly how he felt about his team.
No, I was listening into the press conference, working on the laptop, uploading some video with my back to Sean McDermott. And as he started his press conference, I'm like, whoa, he's really going at it. Like, no, he was really like, we didn't play at the standard. You really don't hear Sean McDermott talk that candidly very often, except for, a 40-point loss in the regular season, a playoff loss where there really is no sugarcoating. There was no sugarcoating today.
Yeah, and he talked about phrases like, we are going to get hit in the face with how the film is going to look. And we heard a lot from both McDermott and Josh Allen about how the standard is the standard, and the Bills didn't play to it. And it's a nice cliche, and I know fans at home might roll their eyes at it. I get that. You hear a lot of cliches when you cover the NFL and follow the NFL for sure. But this Bills team in the preseason has always been the team that will fight to the end, whose second teamers and third teamers play well. This is why I bet on the Bills in the preseason all the time, because they win games. And AJ, they didn't have anywhere close to that fire in this one.
Two things to note about that. One, Ed Oliver got hurt on the very first play of the game. He was fine. He said that, the report was he could have been cleared to play. He was cleared to play. It's just the preseason, so he didn't. So no need to really worry about that. But I think that does have a little bit of an impact when you see one of your best players leave the field. I think you might kind of look around and be like, all right, this isn't great. Like, what are we kind of doing out here? Like, it's preseason game one, and Ed Oliver walks off the field with a knee injury. Once again, he was fine, but I think that impacts it. And then another thing, kind of just big picture, obviously this has been talked about ad nauseum. It's a brand new roster. A lot of roster turnover, top 10 roster turnover in the league. And that's where the Bills have kind of thrived in the preseason, is their second team guys are players with NFL experience. They're good players. They're guys who, we could feel kind of comfortable them being out on an NFL field. Even down to the third team, you got some, feisty players out there. There's a lot of new players, a lot of inexperienced players, and it kind of showed out there today.
They also have an issue, too, with the trickle-down. It's not just about talent or ability. It's also about if your top players are wildly experienced, well, it makes it easier for them to teach everybody down all the way through the depth chart. So I get what's going on, and I think that's a good point, that it's not just about losing Stephon Diggs or Jordan Poyer or Micah Hyde. It's that all the way down the roster becomes an issue. And I think the place where we saw it the most was offensive line, defensive line, and especially with the offensive line. There was really no run game of any sort, first team or whatever. Pass protection was okay for the first team.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then after that, it got bad. Is this a panic button kind of thing? No, it's a preseason game.
No.
But the one thing I will say is the run game issues are things that we saw in training camp. And again, it's not something I'm concerned about, but it is something that I've seen consistently.
Yeah, and who are some of the biggest losses so far? Maybe the biggest one is going to be Mitch Morse on the offensive line. They bring in Connor McGovern. They put David Edwards, a guy who did not start last year. He was, their swing tackle. He has started in the past, so there is experience there. But that's two guys in your middle who are doing different jobs than they did last year. Osiris Torrance, still just in his second season, had a solid rookie year, but still, those are three players in your interior who, are doing new things, basically.
Are not wildly experienced at what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot new on the offensive line. We're not going to panic here. We're not going to say the offensive line is going to be terrible. Josh Allen's going to be running for his life. But as far as first impressions go, it'd be tough to have a worse one.
Yeah, defensive line-wise, let's keep in mind, not only did Ed Oliver get hurt and leave after one play, Von Miller didn't play at all. We'll get to that in a minute. Daquan Jones is currently nursing an injury. He didn't play at all. So it's tough to have a number one offensive line like the Bills want. That said, Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa didn't really have much of a pass rush today, and that's a spot where you want to see those guys have an impact. Now, speaking of impact, Keon Coleman is a receiver the Bills are looking for impact this year. 1 catch, 8 yards. He did go up against Jalen Johnson, who's one of the top corners in the NFL most of the day. As you might expect, it was much more education than it was success. But AJ, tell me about what Keon thought of his experience afterward in the locker room.
Kind of, workmanlike. Earlier in this offseason, he talked about, going on to Highmark Stadium for the very first time, his introductory press conference, he caught 3 touchdowns. He was enjoying everything, big in the moment. His first practice, he talked about putting on a helmet for the first time. It seemed like he was enjoying all these rookie moments. Lately, he's kind of turned the page where it's workmanlike. It's all right, this is a step in the process. Training camp didn't seem too big for him. He had some nice moments. We didn't really see any rookie mistakes, things of that nature. And afterwards, in the post-game press conference today in the locker room, he was just, okay, this is a good step. It was good to get that first catch. It was good to, get that first game. It was nice to be in front of the crowd, but it'll be bigger in the regular season. It'll be more important in the regular season. And I will say, maybe his most impressive play was that first red zone target where he played defensive back. He did a really good job of preventing an interception there. So, maybe his best play so far.
Well, look, he is involved. He's not afraid to battle. I just think he lost battles for his first game. And if it's his first game, the idea is he should be able to get better going forward. And
those red zone targets did not have Josh Allen throwing him the football, so maybe added to it as well a little bit.
I will say that I don't know if the Lord Almighty would have been able to fit the ball in to where Keon was. He just was not open.
Yeah, maybe he just wouldn't have thrown it, which
would have been the better
If he doesn't throw those 2 balls, we're like, okay, 1 target, 1 catch, there we go, Keon Coleman.
Now, you might have said that. I would have told you after watching him, because I did watch almost every rep. It wasn't that he wasn't open, it was that he wasn't threatening. It didn't look like he was going to be on top of a route at all. Again, game 1, there's a lot of time to go there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now we could talk for 3 hours about all the negative things from this game. Let's talk about some of the things.
Let's do it. Let's go.
We have other things to do. Let's talk about some of the things we liked from this game. I'll let you go first. Give me one of the bright spots from this game for you.
We talked about Keon Coleman as a receiver. The other wide receivers doing their job, doing it well. This short passing game is probably going to be where this offense thrives the most this season. Khalil Shakir had 3 catches, did a good job getting open, doing Khalil Shakir type things, getting some yards after the catch, positive there. And then Curtis Samuel, the offensive screenplay and even kind of the defensive screenplay has not been a Bill's strength in recent years. It's kind of been non-existent in the playbook. Curtis Samuel is a guy who can certainly fill that role, and they got a first down off of a Samuel screen, so that was some nice positives there for the offense.
I like Kyer Elam a lot defensively. I talked about watching Keon Coleman every single play. Did the same for Elam, and I thought play in, play out, he was in the right spot, knew where he had to be, moved with confidence. When he got isolated against the receiver, he was sticky, he was in the receiver's face. Wasn't spectacular, weren't any big pass breakups or interceptions for sure, but I thought he did a good job. He's not threatening to start, but as a third corner, he is continuing to build on the confidence and the success that he's had in training camp. On top of that, I like the low down the depth chart running backs in this game. I thought Frank Gore Jr. and Ray Davis both had moments where they broke tackles, looked strong. Again, neither was spectacular, but there were flashes, and in a game like this, the flashes are going to win you a lot of praise.
I'll talk about Javon Solomon as well. For a guy playing in his first, NFL experience preseason game, had a nice pressure, had I believe, a tackle in the run game as well. So for a player who you have to be a little bit concerned about how his size will translate to this level, getting, bullied around by NFL offensive tackles, I thought he held his own for his first game.
And he got early reps in this game, too. For a guy who's been playing third team mostly in camp, he was in this game early in the second quarter. I thought there was a good, at least something, a sign that bode well for him. Tyler Bass also, 2 field goals, made them both, 49-yarder in a nasty win, no small kick. Confidence booster for sure, even though I think the touchbacks and the kickoffs are probably something he'd want back. And speaking of kickoffs, AJ, the Bills special teams on that particular, or at least really on any of the coverage and receiving parts of this game, were not too exemplary.
Yeah, KJ Hamler puts the ball on the ground. Certainly the best way to kind of get yourself out of a kickoff return competition. He did bounce back. He had a nice, I forget if it was a punt return or a kick return, but he did have some
punt return.
So we saw why he's back there, but certainly you can't be putting the ball on the ground. And then Daquan Hardy on a punt return right here in this end zone here, calls for a fair catch, catches it at about the 4 or 5 yard line, and generally the rule of thumb is probably 10 or in. You just, all right, let that go, let it bounce into the end zone, hopefully. And as he came over here, special teams coordinator Matthew Smiley was right there talking to him, breaking things down, kind of outlining what he should be doing there, how he should be approaching that. So, it's a rookie. These things are going to happen. And Sean McDermott did talk about, it was a little bit of trial by fire dealing with this win for the very first time playing in a game here.
And that's, again, no small thing when it comes especially for a rookie. But the fair catch inside the 5 is it's a big no bueno.
Yeah.
Again, I think, though, that's something that can easily be coached out. Now, it's the preseason. Not everybody's going to play. Josh Allen played exactly one quarter, left on the very last play of the first quarter. Von Miller, Matt Milano did not play. I wasn't too surprised by any of those three. I thought that was probably good management of all three players. Anybody from this game that you were surprised at in terms of playing time, including those three guys? The one thing I will say, AJ, before I let you interject here, I thought Matt Milano might play a little bit just because we've seen him a lot in training camp. It seemed like he was ahead of schedule, but it doesn't hurt to save a guy who's coming off such a major injury.
Yeah, and McDermott talked about this wasn't anything flaring up. This wasn't a setback of any kind. This was kind of part of the plan. And he said that at the beginning of training camp, and then Matt Milano played a lot throughout.
He had 1 day off of camp, I think. Yeah.
So you give him some time off here with this game. You let him work back into things. Maybe he plays a lot in the the joint practice between the Bills and the Steelers. We see what happens in game number 2. I think you'd probably want to get him maybe a possession in a real game just to test things out. We've seen him kind of play around with that knee a little bit, just try and build up some confidence. If it happens in week 1, sure, that's fine. It's not going to be the first time a player coming back from injury has done that in week 1 of the regular season. But I think, him getting out there for a little bit wouldn't be the worst thing in the world in the preseason.
Yeah, I agree. I have a hard time thinking they want him to go in to the regular season with no reps unless he isn't healthy enough to be on the field yet, which is, although he's looked good in training camp and played a lot of drills, we can't discount the fact that they're a little nervous about playing him in an uncontrolled situation. We might find out more about that this week, and let's turn this forward now. Next up for the Bills is a preseason game with the Steelers, but more importantly, a joint practice on Thursday. And I think this is going to work out perfect for the Bills because coming off this game that was poor, they need an opportunity to clean the slate. And the good thing about the joint practice is you can still play Josh Allen throughout all the first team drills. You can give everybody a full look because it's a controlled environment. If the coaches don't want to go full tackle, if they don't want to allow the quarterbacks to get hit, which I'm sure is what they'll do, they can do that. And instead of just taking the Bills and Josh Allen and this first team to another preseason game where you're like, how much do we want to risk it? Do you push it to the second quarter? I think getting a full practice against a different team is going to do wonders for the Bills, assuming they put forth a better effort.
Yeah, so today's Saturday. You figure tomorrow they'll look at some film. It'll be ugly film.
Sure.
They'll get reamed out for it pretty good. These first couple, Monday or Tuesday practice, whatever their schedule is, I'm sure the temperature is going to get turned up a little bit based on this performance here. So you get a chance on Wednesday against another team, another opponent, to kind of let out some of that frustration in a healthy way. So I think that'll do them a lot of good.
When you talk about getting reamed out in film, I instantly went back to my high school football days, and we played a game. We didn't throw the ball much when I was in high school at Aquinas. We played a game where our quarterback was 2 of 7 with 3 interceptions. So our coach writes the stats on the board, and he goes, guys, we completed 5 passes, 3 to the other team. And that will live with me forever. And I do wonder if tomorrow there will be Sean McDermott things or assistant coach things that live with this Bills team forever. The good news is this preseason game will live for about 3 seconds because we're going to talk about it this week, and then it'll be gone the moment we get to the joint practice because it doesn't matter in the standings. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Buffalo Gameday Recap. Remember, you can find this all the time at rochesterfirst.com. Click on the 8 Sports Extra tab. You can see all of our different Bills chats all the way through to the beginning of training camp. We'll be back with you again next Saturday from Pittsburgh talking about the Bills and the Steelers. Again, you can find us YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Basically, if it's social media, we're there somewhere. For AJ Feldman, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next week.